I'm super excited to do this video because I love audiobooks, and people often ask me how I read so much, and the answer is I don't actually read so much. I listen to a lot of audiobooks as well as read. So I have 2 small children, I work 36 hours a week, and I'm doing my master's at university, so it's really hard for me to find the time to read. I may not have time to read, but I'm constantly doing things like taking the kids out, waiting for the kids to finish their dancing lessons or swimming lessons. I'm constantly going shopping and doing household chores. So washing, my goodness, before I had kids, I knew there'd be more washing, but I didn't quite realize how much more washing and how much time I would be spending washing and folding and hanging and washing and folding and hanging. So audiobooks are a big sanity saver for me. Now I know my audiobook library is probably not as extensive as some other people's, but I have read over 200 audiobooks. So I sort of feel like I have the qualifications to be able to recommend audiobooks for beginners that they might enjoy. So I was thinking, why don't I do a video recommending some good audiobooks? So if you're a beginner, you'll be able to find one that you will potentially like from this list. And even if you're not a beginner, even if you're a seasoned audiobook listener, maybe there'll be something new for you. So I thought I would go over genre by genre, not my favorite audiobooks, but just ones that I would recommend for beginners that are really good to listen to. With the hope that, like me, you can transform your dreary household tasks into something productive and exciting. Now, if I can figure out how to put timestamps on my video by the time this goes up, I'll put some timestamps down the bottom just in case there's some genres that you don't like if you don't like romance or historical fiction, you can just skip over that bit and go to the stuff that you like. Hopefully you'll find something that you really enjoy, and I hope you enjoy this video. So let's get started. Contemporary fiction. So contemporary fiction is not my favorite genre on audio, purely because a lot of them just drag on and I have a bit of a short attention span. But having said that, I do have a recommendation for you if you like contemporary fiction. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. Eleanor Oliphant is about Eleanor Oliphant, and she's a bit eccentric, a bit of a loner. She meets IT guru Raymond, and they help save the life of a man on the street, and they develop this friendship. An odd type of relationship begins between them that slowly unravels Eleanor's life. It is masterfully narrated, and it is a really good audiobook. Historical fiction. I'm a bit weird with historical fiction because I say that I don't like historical fiction, but then every historical fiction book I've read I really enjoyed. So I think it's just something in me that I just say I don't like it, but I actually do. Anyway, my audiobook recommendation for historical fiction is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. So Burial Rites is loosely based on a true story, very loosely. It's based on a woman named Agnes, who was the last person in Iceland to be sentenced to death for murder. She's sent to this farmhouse to serve the remainder of her sentence, and she meets this wannabe priest, and her story starts to come out about how she got there, and they all start to wonder if she's actually the murderess that they think she is. And it's just so hauntingly beautiful. The narration is just exquisite. And it is one of the best historical fictions that I've ever read. Listen to. Yeah. It will have you glued to your earphones. You will not be able to remove them from your ears. They'll be stuck. I have a love-hate relationship with young adult books. Some of them have been so good on audio and some of them are so bad. I have 2 that I'm thinking about recommending, but for beginners, I think that the best one to recommend would be the Scythe series by Neil Shusterman, beginning with Scythe. This one's set in a world where there is no death, so nobody dies of natural causes, there's no hunger, there's no disease, there's nothing like that. And in order to keep the population under control, they've got these scythes who go and kill people to keep the population down. So it focuses on 2 of these sort of scythes in training where they learn how to go around and kill people. And it sort of focuses on their friendship that develops between them, and then it goes into how they sort of go on separate paths. And it's just a fantastic book. It's got everything. It's got friendship, it's got romance, it's got action, it's got adventure, it's got betrayal, it's got politics, it's got corruption. It was just a really, really fun read. I keep saying read. Is it really read, or is it like a fun listen? I don't know. I'm a bit drunk. Also, my favourite part about this book is that there's no love triangle. Yes! How come every young adult book I seem to read has a love triangle? And it just drives me nuts. But there's none in this, and I like that. Romance. Easy. Hands down. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Loved it. One of the best romances I've ever read, and definitely the best one I've ever listened to. So it's based around Evelyn Hugo, and she's a Hollywood starlet from the 50s or 60s. And she, in the present day, hires a reporter named Monique to tell her scandalous life story about her 7 husbands. And of course Monique jumps at the chance, but she's thinking, why me? Why has this one of the most famous women in the world, why has she chosen me to write this story? Why indeed? So it goes into Evelyn's life, and it was just everything you want a story to be. There's friendship, romance, sexuality, greed, betrayal, motherhood. It's just an amazing read. Even just talking about it makes me want to listen to it again. I absolutely loved it. It was definitely in the top 5 books of all time for me. It was so good. Thriller. So thrillers can also be a bit hit and miss, but I do have a really good series to recommend for beginners. It's called the Nowhere Man series by Greg Hurwitz, and it starts with Orphan X. So think James Bond crossed with Jason Bourne, full of action, blood, guts, gore, adventure, mystery. It had such clever writing, and it was just, the audio version was just so good. Evan Smoke is the Nowhere Man. So he was an orphan and brought into this program to turn him into like this super spy. But he leaves, I think the program gets disbanded. Even though the orphan program disbands and all the orphans go their separate ways, Evan still uses his skill to help people in need. And a lot of things happen, and it's very good. I highly recommend it. Action and adventure. I have a brilliant action series to recommend to you, and it is a relatively unknown series. I don't know why, because it's really good, and it's by an Australian author, and his name is Greg Beck, and it's called the Alex Hunter series. It's full of action, twists, turns, adventure, action, more action, blood, guts, violence, sex, everything. Like Matthew Riley on steroids. It is a really good series. So I'm going to be a bit unconventional and recommend the third one in the series called This Green Hell. So this was the one that I started with. I found it at the library, and as soon as I listened to it, I knew I had to listen to all of them. This Green Hell is about some scientists in Paraguay who are digging up to find this microorganism which could end like the power crisis, that could be, give you infinite power. But what they dig up is something much more terrifying. Cue genetically altered super soldier Alex Hunter and his team to come and save the day. Oh, what a fun series. After I read This Green Hell, I did go back and read the first 2, but I just didn't quite enjoy them as much as This Green Hell. But the ones after that, I think Gorgon and Kraken Rising were amazing as well. There's 8 of them in total. I've only read the first 6. I really better get to that. Another one I really enjoyed of his was Fathomless. So that one was about this giant shark, and like the Meg, it was really good. Sci-fi. Now we get to the difficult part, narrowing down the sci-fi. Sci-fi and fantasy are my absolute favourite genres to listen to on audio, so it was actually almost physically painful for me to narrow it down to 1. So I didn't. I narrowed them down to 2 in sci-fi anyway. So I have 2 sci-fis to recommend for beginners on audio. One is more a hardcore sci-fi for maybe people who like sci-fi or really want to get into sci-fi. And the other one is a more light and humorous one. So the light and humorous one is Infinite by Jeremy Robinson. So I found Infinite randomly on an Audible sale that came into my email, and it was the best $3 that I've ever spent because I absolutely loved it. So Will is stuck on a spaceship, and the spaceship's traveling light years, and he's in a cryogenic sleep. But something's gone wrong with his cryogenic sleep, and his body's asleep, but his brain is not. So his brain is awake in his body for over a decade. Then when he wakes up, there's been a massacre on the ship, and then he finds out that he's actually immortal, and then nothing else can go wrong, right? If you like The Matrix and Interstellar, I think you'd probably really enjoy this one. And it was narrated by R.C. Bray, who also narrated The Martian, which was also on the shortlist for this video. For a more hardcore sci-fi recommendation, I can't go past Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This one literally spans thousands of years. The plot is quite intricate, but it's really easy to get lost in the audio version. It was just so good. So basically, the Earth is dying and humanity sends out this ship to populate another world. However, things don't go exactly to plan, and instead of humans colonizing this world, something else colonizes this world, something that's not quite human but very much alive and very much with 8 legs. So I really don't recommend this book if you're afraid of spiders. So Dad, don't listen to it. It was absolutely brilliant on audio. Mel Hudson was the narrator and just did a tremendous job, and it was just the most fun. One of the best sci-fi books I've ever listened to. One of the best sci-fi books that I've ever read. I have so many more sci-fi recommendations. I'm really going to have to do a video just on sci-fi alone. Same deal with fantasy. I've listened to so many good fantasy audiobooks that it's really difficult for me to narrow it down. But I was thinking, what would a beginner like? Like something classic fantasy. Can't go past The Rhaenyra Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. So this one starts with the book The Theft of Swords, and it's about 2 friends, Royce and Hadrian. So they're thieves, but they have a conscience. This book is divided into 2 books. In the first half, they get framed for the murder of a king and have to find their way out of it. In the second half, a young girl hires them to come and kill a monster that's been slaughtering people in her town. But it's not as easy as it seems. I highly recommend checking this series out on audio. It was brilliant, and I think it was the first fantasy series that I listened to on audio, so it has a bit of a special place here. I just had to add some honourable mentions, just a couple of extras just to shove in at the end there. I won't go into the plot or anything, but Circe by Madeline Miller, The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, definitely one of the best fantasy series I've read, but it's not complete yet. The next one's coming out next year, but I'm going to do a review of the first 2 in the coming week. So that'll be good. And last but not least, the Lady Astronaut series, starting with The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. I could put another 100 on this list. There are so many good audiobooks out there. If you're new to audiobooks and one of them struck your fancy, please tell me if you read it and tell me what you think of it. Do you have any others to recommend to people who are just starting out? Or do you have any audiobooks to recommend to me? Because I'm always after more audiobook recommendations. So please leave them down in the comments. Hopefully my video has given just a few examples of good ones that you can check out, and hopefully you'll like some of them. And just remember with audiobooks that patience is the key. Sometimes it takes a little while for the story to unravel on audio, and sometimes listening to it you may think you don't like the narrator, the story's not for you, but it really depends on the narrator and your personal taste as to what you like. Try them out, see how they fit with you and your personal taste, and hopefully you can find one that you enjoy. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to leave your audiobook recommendations down below in the comments, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye!